If you're going through something that feels like the dark night of the soul, where nothing makes sense anymore, and where you've lost your grip on meaning, I made this for you. I mapped the exact 6 stages I went through and how to survive each one. This isn't a pep talk. It's a trauma-informed, non-dual approach for awakening empaths, scapegoats, and highly sensitive people who are done doubting their truth and ready to live as their own authority. I'm walking you through the actual roadmap I discovered, what each stage feels like, what's happening to your identity, and how to move through it without losing yourself. I created this when I had no map, no guide, just chaos. If I had this then, it would have saved me months, if not years, so I'm giving it away for free just to get it in front of the people who need it. When I first left a web of spiritual gaslighting, codependency, enmeshment, and narcissistic abuse, I thought freedom would feel like instant bliss, and it did, briefly. When I discovered non-duality, had my first ego death, and experienced the beautiful, simple connectedness that all this really is, it was liberating to find out I didn't need to follow the shame and fear-based scripts that I'd been given throughout my life. But then when I tried to reintegrate into the world, it felt like collapse, panic, rage, and numbness. That's why I want you to know this. You're not here because you failed. You're here because you woke up. You're not broken. You're in process. And you don't have to walk this path alone. Whether you walked away from a controlling spiritual community, a suffocating workplace, a narcissistic relationship, or even your own family, and now find yourself doubting, grieving, or raging, I want you to know you're in the right place. The panic, numbness, or hypervigilance you're experiencing isn't proof of brokenness. It's proof that your nervous system is protecting you. Today, we'll talk about why your body reacts this intensely, how to know which stage of the journey you're in, and what it takes to rebuild your life from within without needing the reconciliation, permission, or even understanding of those unsafe relationships. By the end, you'll have clarity about where you are and a clear option for what comes next. Let's start by naming something that many spiritual circles bypass. Awakening really hurts at first. We hear myths that true spirituality means the absence of negative emotions, but awakening can feel like betrayal, panic, and confusion. When the identities and relationships we built to survive begin to dissolve or weaken, and when we stop translating ourselves for others who are still asleep, there's backlash, from within and without. You might be hypervigilant around relationships, asking, who can I trust? Maybe you replay conversations over and over to prove, even just to yourself, that you were well-intentioned. Perhaps you feel guilt for setting boundaries, wondering if leaving makes you selfish or cruel. Some of us isolate entirely because we'd rather be alone than violated again. These are not personality flaws. They're adaptive responses. Trauma responses like fight, flight, freeze, and fawn are ways our nervous systems protect us. Feeling depressed, anxious, or numb after leaving a relational system is normal. It's your body's way of coping with the unresolved grief that we cannot force anyone around us to awaken with us, and the terrifying loneliness of recognizing the necessity of energetic hygiene. If this hidden pain isn't addressed, it fragments us. We split ourselves to keep others comfortable. Hypervigilance becomes our baseline. We repeat the same relational patterns with different faces. Creative dreams get postponed because success feels dangerous. Our bodies suffer from chronic stress, and finances can stagnate because survival mode drains energy. Knowing that these reactions are human rather than broken is the first step toward integration. What I'm about to share isn't dogma. It's a pattern I've seen in myself and others while disentangling from relational trauma, outdated scripts, trauma bonding, and pre-verbal wounding during an awakening to non-dual consciousness. It isn't linear, and you may move between phases or revisit them. That's okay. Phase 1 is the fog. Here, something feels off, but you can't name it. You feel guilty and loyal to people who don't honor you. You overfunction, overexplain, and override your own needs. You might feel like a ghost in your own body. The medicine of this phase is naming the invisible. When you see the roles like caretaker, peacekeeper, or translator, you can't unsee them. Naming isn't weakness, it's freedom. And here's the part no one tells you. Sometimes your body breaks the illusion before your mind does. Phase 2 is the breaking. Something happens that ruptures the illusion. It could be a betrayal, a panic attack, or a confrontation, or a spiritual text that reminds you the truth of who you are. Your nervous system says no more before your mouth does. It's disorienting and can feel like death, but it's the beginning of birth. Panic, rage, and collapse are data. They're not signs that you're failing. They're sacred intelligence. Phase 3 is the exit. You start acting on what you know. You might go no contact, leave a role, or even just quietly withdraw your energy. You set boundaries as a lifeline, not a punishment. You reclaim energy from fear of being misunderstood and discern between avoidance and intuitive departure. Others might label you dramatic or unloving, but boundaries are survival and self-design. Phase 4 is the eclipse. This is the phase most people resist, and it's why so many get stuck looping in pain instead of moving forward. This is the part that doesn't get talked about enough, but it's huge. This is the void, the silence after the exit. You may feel shame, grief, or even doubt your choice. You might miss people who hurt you. But this emptiness isn't failure. It's a sacred pause. It's where your nervous system resets, old roles shed, and grief is allowed. Slowing down is radical in a culture that worships constant progress. Too many teachings describe the void as a black hole, a place of ego death that feels endless and irreversible. I see it instead as a solar phenomenon. The sun is still there. You're still there. It's just that something is moving across your light, asking you to pause before your next becoming. Phase 5 is the return. So how do you actually move forward without getting pulled back into old patterns? That's what I'll share next. A grounded clarity emerges. You reconnect with anger not as violence, but as clarity. You integrate your before and after selves. You don't feel compelled to over-explain your truth. Sacred anger becomes a tool for boundaries, and joy begins to flicker back. You start re-entering life from presence, not strategy. And phase 6 is the rebirth. Here, you no longer seek the old relational system's understanding. Boundaries become about design, not defense. You stop avoiding chaos and start anchoring peace. Joy returns naturally. You maintain energetic hygiene, not from fear, but from love of yourself. Your light becomes your truth, and you begin to access it daily. You may cycle through these phases multiple times. There's no finish line, only deepening clarity and compassion. Here's the radical part of this, though. Many people fear the void. In our fix-it culture, emptiness is often seen as failure. Coaches may urge you to raise your vibration or think positive to escape it. Yet, the void is where your nervous system resets. It's where grief moves through, where old frameworks collapse so you can rebuild from within. If you're in prolonged numbness or emptiness, there's no need to rush yourself. As teacher Eckhart Tolle points out, what collapses in the dark night is the conceptual framework that your mind built. Meaning that feels like it's dying is often just an outdated story falling away. When you stop fighting the void, whispers of guidance emerge. Radical acceptance arises, not resignation, but clarity. Your nervous system learns it can rest, and integration happens organically. But there is a risk to staying too long in the fog. If we stay in loops of confusion and self-doubt, we risk fragmenting ourselves, repeating patterns, and sabotaging opportunities. Chronic stress can impact digestion, immunity, and energy. Hypervigilance drains finances and creativity. Dreams get deferred because survival mode doesn't allow for vision. Naming these costs isn't meant to scare you, but to clarify what's at stake. Awareness allows you to choose differently. And that's why knowledge isn't enough. Practice makes change. Here are some principles I've found essential. Number 1 is recognize the relational system. Identify the roles that you adopted to survive, such as caretaker, peacekeeper, or translator. Naming them breaks the spell. Number 2 is reclaim body-based truth. Trauma disconnects us from our bodies. Gentle movement, breath work, and somatic tracking help you discern intuition from fear. Number 3 is disentangle from survival roles. Practice boundaries rooted in self-trust. Pause before saying yes and ask, do I have my own permission? Number 4 is speak truth safely. Share your experience without performing for approval. Journaling, voice notes, or talking to a trusted friend can be powerful. Number 5 is grieve myths, not just people. Mourn beliefs like family equals safety or obedience equals love. Grieving myths allows you to rebuild on reality. Number 6 is rebuild identity in the present. Explore hobbies, interests, and desires you suppressed while enmeshed. Who are you when you're not performing a role? Number 7 is create daily rituals. Develop simple practices like a tea ritual or a daily walk that remind you of your autonomy. Number 8, anchor boundaries from stillness. Boundaries set from anger can be necessary, but those set from stillness are sustainable. They don't need an explanation. Number 9, integrate with beauty and rhythm. Let music, nature, and art regulate you. Beauty calms the nervous system, and rhythm grounds. And number 10 is trust your inner discernment. As you practice listening to yourself and honoring it, discernment grows. You don't need to distrust everyone. You need to trust yourself first. After going through this, you might feel relieved, inspired, or overwhelmed, and that's natural. And this is where having a container matters. I know courses are everywhere, but I also know how lonely this path can feel. That's why I'm giving away the Sovereignty Sequence for free. A self-paced, trauma-informed program aligned with the 6 phases we've explored. It blends nervous system care, non-dual insight, and practical tools to help you rebuild your life from within. It's new, it's already helping others begin to disentangle from the invisible dynamics that keep them stuck, and I'm currently offering it completely for free by application only because I want 100 testimonials before I charge for it. The course includes video teachings, no platitudes, just lived experience and practical insight, somatic practices to regulate the nervous system, journaling prompts and workbooks to name patterns and reclaim desires, energy hygiene rituals to clear entanglements, guided meditations for each phase, including the void, and a private community forum to share and witness without performing. You'll find the link in the description, so apply today if it feels right. It isn't a quick fix, but it's a high-impact container that respects your timeline. You'll have lifetime access, and any course updates will be yours for free because healing is not linear. You can revisit modules whenever new layers surface. Let's briefly explore the worldview behind this work. Many teachings separate trauma recovery and non-dual awakening. Trauma spaces sometimes pathologize spirituality, and spiritual circles sometimes bypass trauma. And here we integrate. Non-dual wisdom reminds us that the feeling of being a separate ego inside a bag of skin is a hallucination, as Alan Watts likes to put it. We're not isolated fragments, but expressions of one field. At the same time, trauma researcher Pete Walker notes that people with good enough parenting have flexible access to fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses, while those repeatedly traumatized fixate on one. Healing requires somatic integration, not just spiritual insight. In other words, dissolving the ego isn't enough if our nervous systems are still wired for survival. Conversely, regulating the nervous system isn't complete if we remain identified with a separate self. The real work comes from marrying these worlds. We dissolve false identities while caring for the body and honoring boundaries in this earthly plane to protect our energy. Awakening isn't about bypassing, it's about embodied sovereignty. The true sacrifice therein is that of the false self. You may still have questions and fears. What if I'm not ready to leave the people or relational system I'm entangled with? Well, you don't have to physically leave immediately or ever. Begin where you are, naming roles, reclaiming body truth, and setting small boundaries. The map meets you wherever you are. Does this replace therapy? No, I'm not a therapist. This is an educational and experiential framework. Therapy complements it by offering individualized care, and seeking help is a sign of strength. What if I don't identify as an empath? Empath here means someone who overfeels and overaccommodates due to early conditioning. Anyone disentangling from toxic dynamics and awakening to non-dual consciousness is welcome. I've been in this process for years. Will this still help? Yes, healing is not linear. You might revisit phases multiple times as deeper layers surface. The map offers structure, not a timeline. What if I'm afraid to feel anger or grief? Anger becomes clarity, grief becomes love. The course and practices offer ways to feel emotions safely. If you feel overwhelmed, seek support. There's no shame in needing help. Is this just another program? Healthy skepticism is wise, but if the work resonates, beautiful. If not, trust your path. So we've covered a lot. We named the hidden pain of awakening, walked through the 6 phases, explored why the void is vital, looked at the cost of staying in confusion, and shared principles for moving forward. We touched on the fusion of trauma and non-dual awakening, and introduced the sovereignty sequence as a supportive container. We addressed common fears and questions, and now I invite you to breathe. Notice your body. Maybe you feel relief. Maybe you feel seen. Maybe you feel activated. Whatever is present, welcome it. If you're ready to explore further, you can apply for the free course at the link in the description. Please know that you're not broken. You're awakening. You're right on time. You don't need permission to reclaim yourself. Thank you for sharing this space with me. And as always, may the shadow wane and the stardust remain.